Good morning, George.
Good morning, Rick.
Let's see, we are on to another little video about how to maybe dive into the sport of ultra cycling, what you need to know, the basics here and there. Nothing more basic than the rules, right?
Rules. Yep.
We all hate them. We all need them badly.
I used to duplicate RAAM's rules and super thick, and now my rules page is pretty, if you think you're cheating, you probably are.
Yeah, and that is probably a really good way to look at it. RAAM has a lot of rules due to necessity of length and some permitting and nitpicky things that we have to deal with. For most events, your rules should be a page to 5 pages of basics. So we're going to kind of address kind of the upper level, big picture type of stuff that most events probably have to deal with. Certainly road events, maybe not 24-hour events, but things that are more critical to making sure you don't get penalties and that events don't get in trouble. Because if our racers don't follow these rules, we don't get permits to put on events.
That's
so
very correct.
they're very important. But the critical part of rules, other than we have them in place so we can get permits and get approvals to go through areas, they kind of provide 3 basic things. Safety. And first and foremost, before you argue about rules and things like that, remember, most every rule is in place for safety, for racers, crew, other people on the road, everyone. We want a level playing field. We want as close to everybody competing as fairly as they can. It doesn't matter what sport you play. That's kind of how it works. And you also want the integrity of the sport to be upheld. You don't want cheating. You've seen cheating scandals. You pick your sports, cycling, the Olympics, baseball, they happen almost every sport. And what you really want is people to believe in the results they see. So knowing all those things, that really what we want to do is make sure these events are safe and fair, and we can all keep doing them for many years to come. What are some of the big ones?
Well, I was just going to add to what he said, that a lot of the rules are created because people looked at the rules and then got creative and were like, oh, it doesn't say I can't do this. And again, if you think what you're doing is giving you a fake advantage in speed, I guess that would be a real advantage that other people don't have, and don't do it. Or if you come up with that idea, ask the race director.
Yeah, of officials, race directors, anybody out there should have a basic idea of why the rules are in place. And again, creativity with the rules, don't do it. And, really what you're looking at, if you're trying to sit there and parse every word of a rule, don't do it. You understand what the spirit of the rule is.
Yep.
You understand why it's there. And if you don't, then you probably shouldn't be racing or crewing anyway. Yeah, so loopholes, sure, they're there. They're probably in every event. But if that's what you're searching for, you're probably really not.
Put your time elsewhere.
Yeah, you're not using your skills the best they could be used. Go out and have fun. Ultimately, the event should be fun. They should be fair. And if you're just looking for loopholes to kind of weasel your way through stuff, just don't do it. Just don't. But we have them, we write them, we review them every year. So we're going to go through some kind of top level, big issues, the most important critical things that really affect, safety and fairness, and again, allowing us as event operators to stay on the road. Because we are there because we are allowed permission to be there. We don't just get to do it because.
And do you want to start right in with the rules, or the people who are out there to help enforce those rules?
Well, let's talk a little bit about the officials. So every race has them, and they're generally volunteerish people. They might get paid a small stipend to be out there, but they're out there to ensure that people are following the rules, the basic guidance of them. They do their best, and again, everyone, all of us have good days and bad days out there, but generally they're there to make sure you're safe and doing the right things on the road to to be fair to other racers, to be fair to yourselves, to be fair to other drivers or walkers or other cyclists on the road. So in interacting with these people, generally, it's kind of like interacting with a police officer. They're not, our officials aren't running on quotas. They don't have to give 5 penalties in the first 5 hours. They're out there mostly to observe and make sure.
We don't want them giving 5 penalties.
The best day in the world for us would be seeing no penalties, right? And so really they're there to help you. So getting up in their face and yelling at them is not going to help any situation. Being thoughtful and asking questions probably will. It's not to say that officials never make mistakes, they do. But instead of yelling at them about it, having a good discourse and understanding of why things are the way they are, or why they thought you were breaking a rule, and maybe they're giving you a warning or a penalty, can help you understand that going forward in the event.
And not get another one.
And not get another one.
Because, what's it like as a rider to get in the car and find out that, we got an hour penalty?
Yeah.
And maybe you keep that secret from the rider, but then they find out at the end, and that's even worse.
Yes, and quite often the penalties are due to crew, not riders. The riders, we'll get into some of the stuff they do, but crew are quite often the problem. And so it's good to understand what you did wrong. And again, yelling at an official really isn't going to help. And if you show up to an event prepared, ready to go, your bike looks good, your cars look good, the numbers, the lights, everything is in proper place, the official's going to look at it and go, wow, these people really have their stuff together. And that's a good thing. And, and again, on the road, if your first interaction with them is you yelling at them about something or complaining or whatever, they're probably, it's going to affect how they feel throughout the
First
events.
impression matters.
It does matter a lot. It does matter a lot. And so keep that in mind whenever you're interacting with anyone that's, involved with race staff or an official, that really what you're trying to do is understand. And it works both ways.
So when do the majority of the penalties happen? And please don't say pre-race, but I know they do.
They do happen.
We're talking RAAM.
Yep. So they do happen pre-race. Not often. We've kind of, and honestly, more people are coming more prepared. So you're seeing less and less of that. But again, we talk about rules. The rules are available pretty much year round. We update them right before the race, but they don't ever change that much. It's true for every event I put on. They're pretty much the same.
Well, for what I'm familiar with, if you do make a change, you send out an email announcing it as well.
Yeah, if it's a major change, we'll tell people. If there's something that is a major change. If they're little minor things, probably not. But read those rules. Everyone on the crew should read those rules. The crew chief should read the rules. The racers should read the rules. They're there. I don't care what event it is, know the basics. Because while most road events and most 24-hour events are pretty similar, they're not always the same. Their requirements aren't the same. So kind of rolling back to when most penalties happen, fortunately, we've eliminated a lot of the pre-race penalties, almost all of them. But a bulk of the penalties in RAAM and RAW are the first 24 to 48 hours. And again, we addressed a little bit earlier about crews and being excited and anxious, and that's part of it. So, take the time to even go preview courses, drive the courses a little bit so you understand them. Understand things like pull-offs for doing exchanges or handoffs. So again, use that to understand the rules and some of the things that the rules say, and practicing also helps, before you ever get to an event. But usually the events, first 24 hours, almost all the issues. Kind of trickles into the next day, but usually by the next day you're pretty settled in.
Field spreading out.
Yeah, you're kind of spread out, So that first 24 hours is critical for your crew and racers to really be conscious and aware of other crews and other racers, other vehicles, other pedestrians. And that's when you're likely going to make the mistake. And the one thing that we will kind of talk about probably a lot during these is these events are long. Even a 500-mile event, it's a long event. you don't need to be in a rush or a panic to do anything.
Right.
You generally can just step back, take a breath, and then do it. And that will help kind of mitigate a lot of these penalties. It's just stepping back and thinking for just a minute about what you're doing. And especially take that time, if you get a chance to do some pre-race practicing, that's great. But that first 24 hours, your awareness level should be very high, knowing that that's when you're probably going to make the mistakes.
And you were saying, which are the ones that really are troubling? I have to say the first one, as an official, and it's interesting to race, but also have the mind of being a head official.
Yeah.
But impeding traffic. And I know you're focused on your racer. You want to protect your racer. And oh my gosh, we're slowing that car down. They're going to maybe be a minute or whatever it is. But, then another car shows up and another and another. If we slow that person down and they're having to, cut their trip short or whatever, because a bike and a support vehicle got in their way, authorities are going to hear about it.
Yeah, and so these are things, impeding traffic and what we call caravanning, so having more than a couple cars behind a racer stacked up, waiting to pass. Those are the things that ultimately are very, very dangerous to us keeping permits. It's what makes locals and law enforcement really unhappy with us. So one of the most critical things. And then on top of that, you may think you're doing a really good job of protecting your racer by blocking all these cars. But what you'll find is that guy that's sitting 2 or 3 cars back all of a sudden gets really angry, decides to pass a bunch of cars, and another car is coming at him, and he has to cut over really quickly, which could be your cyclist. So it becomes not just an inconvenience or I'm doing a good job protecting my racer. You could really be jeopardizing somebody's safety, whether it be another car or your racer, by not just taking a second and sliding over a little bit, letting them go by, wave them by, be courteous about it, wave it. Don't flip people off, don't yell at them. You're an anomaly on the road for them. You're something they're not used to. So think ahead, think about what you're doing to the people behind you. And that's where, as a crew, driving is a really tricky task, because you're driving slow or you're driving fast and pulling over, driving fast, pulling over. You need to have a lot of awareness of what's going on around.
And we also need to think about that rider who's ahead of us, because that driver is getting mad at your crew and rider, and maybe they take it out on the rider that's the next one they come upon.
Right. So again, you're all kind of in the same boat together, and all of us who are riders, we know what it's like to be on the road and how scary it is to have a car come flying by you, etc. But all of us as drivers also know that getting behind some irresponsible cyclists on the road can be really annoying. Now, we may have a higher tolerance level because we ride bikes as well, but it's still annoying. You need to understand what is going on, and you can't just be so focused on what's happening in front of you. So if your person driving is just dead focused on the racer, that's it and nothing else, that person probably should not be driving.
My tolerance is actually less.
But
because I'm looking at the riders going, what you're doing is going to make people really mad when they see me on the road.
Yeah, right. And that's what we're trying to prevent, right? We're trying to be ambassadors out there for a sport that a lot of people, don't understand or get angry about. So you want to be courteous. You want to let these cars go by. You want to be aware, but impeding traffic in that caravanning process, just one of the top no-nos in the sport.
And that's kind of a no warning penalty, correct?
It is a no warning penalty. It is a no argument penalty. Quite often our officials will take pictures or shoot video of it, and I'll get them. And if anybody calls me and asks me, I won't. It's no. It is. I can see it. It's a problem. So that is not something petty. That is a serious problem, because again, it's It's a safety problem. It's a permit problem. It can wrap yourselves around a lot of issues right there.
Caravanning has changed the RAAM route.
Yeah, caravanning did change the RAAM route because we couldn't get our shit together as racers and crew that we had to move our route off a very beautiful section of road because it caused lots of issues for the locals. And fortunately, we got an alternate route, but I don't like it as much.
It's a lot harder,
and they won't let us back. They won't let us go back to it. So
there's no chance.
No.
Wow.
So it is something. Be very aware and courteous of other people on the road. Yes, we're an event. Yes, it's very special. Yes, we're all proud of it. We're psyched to be out there. We've all worked very hard to be there. It doesn't change the fact we're still guests in every one of these communities.
That changed Natchez. That's why I have a mandatory shuttle section because of caravanning and impeding traffic.
Yeah, so it's a really true serious issue. So just be aware of it. It's really easily avoidable. And it really, you have one little congestion point in Jackson. RAAM, it's really, it's most of the roads when they're straight and open, like the middle of the country, is not a problem. But when we get into any of the east and west coast kind of canyons and windy roads, it does become an issue, and you do have to be aware. And there's plenty of places almost everywhere to just slide over a little bit and let people go by. The 508, we have one little canyon up towards the end of the out before you make the U-turn and come back. Same type of issue. We can't have support crews up that canyon because it's just too narrow. So again, be very aware of what's going on around you as a driver, because it does cause those issues. And that is, you're right, it may be penalty number one. Like that may be the top one that we're concerned about for all those reasons.
And how do you feel as a race director when it's marked in the route book, no support in this 4-mile section or whatever it is?
Oh yeah.
And you've gone over it in your pre-race meeting, you talk about it, you make sure everybody knows, and you come driving up and there's a support vehicle right behind the rider doing 5 miles an hour.
It's so difficult, and it from the directing standpoint, any event I put on, any issues that are going on, I never want my racers to know about. They're all my problem. I want them to go out and perform, to race, to do the best they can, to have a great time. I do have some expectations of them, to show up prepared, to have read the rules, and to understand them. And that's not a lot to ask. I've done it as a racer. I've done it as a race director. I've done it as a team sports player. Like, I've refereed, I've coached, I get it. You need to know the basics. And if you can't adhere to some of the most basic rules, it's almost better that you're just not participating, because it really can be dangerous.
Yep.
And again, the rules are there generally for your safety. So, that's a big one. Don't do it. I would say that is probably, I'm going to guess, for any road race that has support vehicles, or even doesn't have support vehicles, even if it's just riders, is probably one of the top rules. I don't care where you are in the world. That's probably an issue. Some more basic things that we kind of have to deal with that you should understand. These races and ultra events are non-drafting events.
What's drafting?
What's drafting?
How far?
How far back is drafting, actually? If you have to ask that question, you're probably doing it. So just don't do it. Like, if you're on
I think the rules say 100 meters, 100 yards, whichever. Well, are you out there with a measuring stick? No, but
you can tell.
You have an idea.
Yeah, you can tell. And every single bike racer knows. The crew, okay, maybe not, because they may not all be a cyclist at some level. Every racer out there knows what they're doing. Don't do it. Like, there's no reason to do it. If you're on the same team, you can draft off of one another. But if it's another team, don't do it. Most of these events are long enough. You're not gaining that much of an advantage doing it anyway.
Right.
It really doesn't help. So don't do it. Again, it can be a safety issue, a especially when racers start to get tired, if you're riding on someone's wheel, you make, when you're tired, you make just sloppy bike handling,
And drafting actually comes into play no matter how far you're into the event because of passing.
Yeah.
Say a relay team overtaking a solo in Ohio.
Yep.
And maybe that rider hasn't seen anyone for a long time, but they're coming up at night and they're getting a nice little motor pace off the support vehicle. They got to get around that car quickly and pass the rider, and then all of a sudden the rider's like, hey, there's another rider out here and I don't want him to pass me. You need to let that rider who caught you go.
Yeah, because they caught you for a reason. You need to yield way to them. They're going to pass you at some point. It's okay to ride next to each other and say hi and have a quick chat and get on with getting on, but don't block people, because that becomes an issue as well. And if you're being caught, you're likely caught and you're not going to catch up.
And that is a real tricky situation because you've got the support vehicle of the rider who's being caught. You've got the support vehicle of the rider who's catching.
Yeah.
Your van has to make a pass around not only the car, but the racer.
Yeah. During the day, it's generally not as tricky, and especially if you're not somewhere
really well.
congested.
Yeah.
Nighttime it is. Again, just be really aware of the things happening around you. We don't see lots of penalty issues with drafting because the race does get spread out pretty quickly. But in 24-hour events, we do catch it. We have to enforce it at our events. It's hard, but I think most people understand it. But if you're questioning it, you're probably doing it. So just don't. The reality of it is, like I said, if you're caught, you're caught. It's not likely you're going to find this sudden burst of energy to repass somebody. So just be aware of it. Be aware of passing riders, people around you. Don't create that caravan issue by stacking up each other either. Give yourself some separation. Again, they're very long events. You're not likely sprinting into the finish. So that's kind of important in general. The one that should be a no-brainer, but cyclists seem to struggle with this quite often, is traffic laws.
Traffic laws and nudity.
Yeah. Keep your clothes on. That's a good idea. But
the world may be your urinal, but when you're out in the world, there are people watching.
Yes.
That you may not be aware of.
Yeah.
And we as race directors hear about it.
Yes, we do. Traffic laws, they're a tricky one, Bottom line, a stop sign's a stoplight, stop sign, stoplight's a stoplight. Obey them. You have to, And, if it's nighttime and your rider is able to make it through a stoplight and your sport vehicle did not make that light, that rider's got to stop, and that is another no warning, no anything. At night, if your rider is riding without their support vehicle behind them, no question in RAAM, it's a penalty. So same thing with lighting. Don't dick around with lighting. Again, we'll talk about equipment in another episode, but have good lights, have good equipment, and don't think you can dance around things like not having a follow vehicle in RAAM. Sure, large parts of the course it would never be an issue, but there are parts of the course that you absolutely want that vehicle behind you, and it's there for a reason. The Navajo Reservation asks us explicitly to make sure we have support vehicles during that section. So, don't try to dance around those things. They're there for very important reasons, usually your safety.
And it's frustrating as a racer to be in a competitive race and you come to a stop sign and the person that you're really close to, you stop and they blow through.
Yep, and I've had it happen to me. I've seen it happen. It's incredibly frustrating, incredibly annoying, and really by not following the rules, you're just being an ass.
Yep.
Like, that's it. You're not being cool. You're not getting anything better than, you're just being a jerk. And it just goes to show that you're really a lesser racer than the person who's obeying the rules. So traffic laws, usually stoplights, stop signs are the big ones. But whatever they are, whatever that traffic law is, staying to the right. Don't, you know, yes, in some states you can take the entire lane. Some states you can't. But again, if you can ride to the right on a road that has cars coming in it, stay to the right. Yeah, you can take the center, but you're going to anger vehicles, and that's going to do nobody any good in the long run. So, be courteous when you're out there too.
Yeah, I was in a race back in the mid-90s, so that long ago, and still remember racing first and second, and the guy who won was much better than I am, but we were having a great race, and no kidding, the racers' crew would go up ahead of us. They would go into the intersection, make sure it was clear, and wave the rider through at full speed. And to be passed at an intersection like that, where the crew was just waving their racer through, the racer's not slowing down at all, and you're following the rules, it's like, I lost a lot of respect for that event, because it was like, where are your officials? This is not cool.
Yeah, the ramifications of it too are much greater than gaining a few minutes or seconds here and there. Again, you're talking potentially permit issues.
You would have beat me anyway.
Safety issues, right? They're just things that are not okay. And again, pretty much every ultra event that I know of, other than a few racetrack events, they're all open road. You're sharing these roads with vehicles. So again, the rules are in place. When we tell you in the rules to stay as far right in the traffic lane as possible or on the shoulder, yeah, we understand that in many places you can ride down the center of the lane, but we have that rule in place for a reason. Again, it's a permitting issue. It's safety issues. What if cars can't see you or don't see you because they're busy calling their mom or fiddling with their Sirius radio or something? You really need to watch out for yourself and be aware of these things going on. And they're easy to follow. They're not hard. And most of the time, there's not lots of places where you need to deal with too many traffic laws anyway. It's a pretty open road. And I think one of the other things that is important to understand is when and how to follow your riders. So that, again, a lot of this falls on the crew. Sure, the racer can run a stop sign. By the way, if the crew runs a stop sign, it's a penalty too. So your crew is in large part responsible for a lot of your racing. Most of the racers get how to ride a bike and even ride it on the right-hand side of the road in a shoulder straight ahead and stop at a stop sign. The crew are quite often the ones that screw up, and follow is one of the key ones. So, for RAAM, we have specific times and places where we can have direct follow versus leapfrog follow. You should understand the difference between them. If you have to shuttle a racer, for example, in Natchez, if you need to shuttle a racer, how to do that, and how those take place. In that, again, it can cause issues with traffic around you, other racers, safety issues. If you're leapfrogging your racer and going by another racer, be aware of where they're at. You don't want to make a quick turn in front of another team or car or racer and cause an issue, whether it's an accident or something else. So those penalties we also watch out for, especially nighttime direct follow. If you don't have a vehicle behind you at night, you will get a penalty and we will stop you. And I know almost every year, Russell, our head official, when it goes to nighttime direct follow, the sun might still be kind of going down, but it's technically nighttime follow, and he'll see a racer out there with no vehicle, and he'll stop
gas during the day.
Yeah, and he'll just stop and just hold them there until they have a sport vehicle show up. Because again, the rules are in place for a reason. Don't fiddle with them. Don't try to find your way around them. And you're responsible for knowing them. Ignorance doesn't count. It doesn't matter. And yes, buy gas during the day. and if you make a mistake and don't, you know, don't let your racer go off alone doing something at night. Take them with you.
I remember RAAM 02, a guy we've been going back and forth with. We'd just gotten into Florida. It was Portland to Pensacola. And I was laughing with Terry because the rider we'd been with stopped because his crew hadn't purchased gas. And so we're like, well, that was an easy way to pass. And then our crew pulls up and says, guys, we got to fill up.
Vic posts an article on Facebook every year about it saying stay half tanked. And basically when your gas tank gets around half, just go fill it up. Good rule to follow, rule of thumb to follow. But in general, like the RAAM rule book's big and complicated, it's long. But when you get down to the nitty gritty, it's mostly common sense and pretty simple. Our other events, Texas, 508, the rule books are short. They're simple, they're straightforward. I'm sure Natchez and RAO, pretty straightforward. It's all common sense stuff. Some people don't have the best common sense, so that's why we actually have a rule book.
And there are qualifiers out there where direct follow at night isn't required.
Yes.
So don't take the rules from the event that you got some experience with and assume that those are going to be the same for RAAM and RAW.
Or it may not even be allowed in some circumstances.
Right.
Like at the 508, like I said, that one canyon, if you happen to hit that at night or at dark time, it's not, we can't have direct follow. It's our permit that says it. So you need to understand these rules, and they are generally pretty common sense rules. And again, one of the ones we jokingly glossed over was literally using the restroom in public. In RAAM, you got a lot of wide open spaces. A lot of these events, you have a lot of wide open space. But keep in mind, there are other people driving around, and if you're near someone's business or their home, wait. Wait, because you don't want anyone going to the bathroom in your front yard. I certainly don't, so nor would I do that to somebody else. It's also not technically a rule, but it would not make me very happy if I saw it. People taking their trash and just piling it on top of full trash cans, just don't do it. It's not kind. It's not, these are businesses, and as events, we do rely on these people to support us, and they're quite often the reason we can go through their towns because they like having us there. And really, again, just use your brain and think about what you're doing. If you really have to pee, go find somewhere discreet to do it. It's not difficult to do.
The biggest complaint I got with public urination was Race Across Oregon. That is a deserted course.
I know there's nothing out there.
There is nothing out there. And I get a phone call from an angry farmer. One of our teams had stopped in their driveway area, which just looks like a big pullout.
Yep.
I mean, you're out in the middle of nowhere, but their kids were out playing in the front yard, and all these guys peed right there.
Yeah, in front of their kids, which and in a big example of it is during RAAM. Quite often we get asked, well, why can't we stop at the Glamis store? There's huge parking areas, there's lots of space. That's why, because people can't behave. So again, use your head. If you do that at your own house, great. Don't do it on a race course. Seriously, common sense, use your brain, think about it. When you go out and drive or ride your bike every day, all these things happen, and we live in a town, Boulder, Denver, Hood River, where there's lots of bikes and cars. You interact with them every day. It's no different during an event. You're not closing roads. There are cars, there are people, there are bikes. So be aware of cars in front of you, behind you, other cyclists that you're competing against or not competing against, They're all integral to the rules, and those are the big ones to really pay attention to. We require amber lights. They're very critical. We want them on, we want them working. They're generally not a life and death safety issue, but we want them working because they do alert people coming behind you that something's happening. So again, be aware, know those things, know what needs to happen, have a rhythm where you check certain things, make sure the bike lights are working, the car headlights, tail lights, amber lights are all working. They're all really important, but super top level importance. Don't block traffic, cause issues with traffic or bikes, and don't do
traffic laws.
Yeah, just don't break traffic laws. Don't do stupid things like drafting off another racer, because really it ruins the event for a lot of people. And what's going to end up happening is you're really going to be the one that looks bad, and you're going to lose a lot of respect.
And if you're drafting off a racer and you're the racer who's being drafted, that's really frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So just keep in mind.
I've nailed my brakes after saying get off my wheel repeatedly, and it's like, just stop.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah, yeah. And again, in most of these events, you're not coming down to sprint finishes anyway. So just go ride, and if someone catches you, you're probably caught. You're probably not going to pass them again. Or when if you're a solo racer and they take a sleep break, you're going to pass them. You take a sleep break, they're going to pass you. It's just the way it works. So just every time you're at an event, even if it's a recreational fun event, not even a race, just keep in mind why they have rules in place and think about it.
So let's chat a little bit about the people who issue the penalties, because there are times as a racer, I loved it when a certain official was around.
Yeah.
I knew they were enforcing the rules, but they were friendly, they were encouraging. And then there are other officials that I've been around as a racer where I'm like, I really wish this person would go away, because I feel like they're just stalking me, looking for something to go wrong.
Sure. So officials, like everyone else, have their own personality traits. Certainly for our events, we do our best to pick and choose the best officials we can find. We do need to bring new officials into the fold as other officials leave or can't make it. So we need to have a pool of people that we draw from. And not everyone is going to have the same personality or how they approach writing a penalty or whatever. It doesn't really change how you interact with them. You should still try to have rational discussions, try to understand it. And if there are serious issues, there are ways to deal with it. You can generally call, like at RAAM, we have a headquarters and a head official who work together closely, and they can monitor these situations. Or you and I both know you can always call race directors, and we can help mitigate the situation. But the worst thing is don't fly off the handle with them. Again, they're people too. They're trying. And we hope we do a good job in selecting our officials. But again, everyone's different. And sometimes maybe you made a really bad impression your first day out there because you were really sloppy and weren't prepared. And now they're looking for anything you do wrong. And I'm not saying that that's okay or it's a good thing. It's human nature.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to be aware of all these things. And same thing, if you have to interact with an official, I would generally send one person, your crew chief, or assistant secondary crew chief in case the crew chief isn't there. Do not approach the official with 5 crew and 3 racers, and it's never going to go well. And ultimately what you want is a fair judgment on whatever happened, and it to be explained or corrected or whatever. So you want to have a fair balance in discussion, and trying to bully somebody or argue with them is generally not going to end well for anybody.
I got a 15-minute penalty in 2004 RAAM in Kansas. On the highway, I was riding to the right of the white line, not in the big, wide, beautiful shoulder, which was covered in gravel. And I didn't get a warning. I just found out that I got a penalty. And I was like, wow, for that stretch, it really, in my opinion, wasn't safe to be riding there because it was all gravel. But I was doing the wrong thing.
Yeah,
I was out on the highway.
Right, and in all fairness, who knows? Maybe a discussion could have been had and you could have explained your side and go, okay, right, that's what we needed to do. Our mistake. And again,
You didn't own the race at that.
I didn't. But nobody's flawless in it, right?
And they were two really good, experienced officials, and I didn't have a beef with them.
Yeah, and it is. It's better to understand than to yell. And I've been in a situation as a race director where I've given a penalty, and I've had a group of people come over and talk to me, and I say, I will not talk to you. I will talk to one person. You can send one person over here, and that person I will talk to. The rest of you need to go away, because I'm not going to sit and deflect a bunch of people start talking at once. It doesn't work. So again, if you have to talk to an official, even if it's a positive thing, right? Even if it's something that's just a question, or you need information, or it's something good that's happening, don't overwhelm people because when you're on the road, again, you have to remember, while you're trying to obey rules and you're tired, the officials are trying to enforce rules and they're tired. Not that any of this is an excuse. They're just things that happen on the road. And just human nature is that we have goods and bads and different interpretations of things. You can generally meet somewhere. Doesn't mean you're going to agree. Doesn't even mean you're going to like it. But you can probably get somewhere where you can go, okay, well, let's get on with getting on. Because ultimately, most of the penalties are not massively horrible, where we really get concerned and are really not bending or anything to do with safety on the road for anybody. Like, again, our staff, our racers, crew, other drivers, pedestrians, anyone out there. So we really want it to be a good relationship between racers and crew and officials, and it can be.
So, yeah, coexist in a good way. And again, if you think you're cheating, you probably are. Don't go there.
Yeah, and read the rules, understand them. Doesn't matter the event. Doesn't matter how many times you've done the event. Reread them. I've done this for 15 years for multiple events. I read the rules every year for every event.
And if you have a question,
Ask.
email the director.
Yeah, ask and get explanations, because really what we want is to keep doing our events and people to have fun and love them and
not get hurt.
And that's where we ultimately want to end up with rules. We want safety, we want a fair race, and we want to keep having the races. So don't try to dance around them. Just read them, understand them. If you got questions, ask. That's what we're there for. So again, thank you, and we'll see you for another installment soon.
All right.